Unemployment remains a major issue here in South Africa. The unemployment rate has increased, listen to this, by 7.5 percentage points to 30.8% in the third quarter of this year. Youth Employment Services CEO Dr. Tashmia Ismail-Savill joining us to speak about this. Now, Dr. Ismail-Savill, good morning to you. It's such a sad topic that every time we speak to an expert on employment, it's always got to do with an increase in unemployment. What do you think has led to this? One can only imagine, of course, it has to do with COVID-19, or am I wrong?
Look, COVID has certainly exacerbated the issue. But pre-COVID, we had levels of youth unemployment in excess of 55% in many parts of the country. We have rural communities where we see up to 70% female unemployment. So whilst COVID has made a bad situation much worse, this has been an ongoing problem in our country, and it's linked to not one but multiple factors. It's an and problem, not an or problem. We've got structural inequalities. We have an education system that isn't preparing young people for entrepreneurial routes. We have labor law issues for small businesses, and we really do have the odds stacked against small businesses forming. We know from statistically the most likely place for a younger, less skilled individual, a small business is the most likely first place of employment. In fact, I'm sure all of us have some small business in our first job history. I know mine was working for my dad and waitressing. And you learn valuable life lessons. You get your entry into the workspace here. We see our numbers of people going into small businesses lagging behind other countries. And of course, this feeds into a longer-term picture of lifelong unemployment for many young people as they move into their 30s in South Africa.
Well, I was just taking a look now at the first quarter of 2020, according to Stats SA, Doctor, and it's this age group of 15 to 24, which seems to be one of the most concerning issues. I mean, you've barely had enough time to get an education, never mind start building an actual career. I know that you said this is an and problem, and that and list keeps on going. We can't fix everything the way we would like to, but which one stands out for you the most that is possibly one that we can address within any reasonable time frame and within any reasonable amount of reality?
So little policy changes are quite powerful. If you look at the Youth Employment Service, the DTIC amended the codes of good practice to reward businesses that invest in youth jobs with a one-year work experience, rewards them with 1 or 2 levels up on the BEE scorecard. In 2 years, despite the sort of economic circumstances that you've been alluding to, we've been able to create 41,500 work opportunities for young people. In salary terms, this isn't a small amount. It's 2.3 billion. In fact, we underestimate that number that is going into youth wallets just through the YES program from the private sector. So these little policy changes can have impacts if we have a lot more creativity around policy. What if we created some kind of policy system that enabled small businesses to hire and let people go as their business cycles improved or decreased? Just a small business set of policies around ease of doing business, helping them register quickly, helping them get finance quickly. That will probably be the fastest way to absorb young people. If you look at about the roughly 1 million young people that go into the labor force each year, the vast majority, 56%, don't have a matric certificate. So whatever creativity we apply in the policy space and for small business is going to be absorbing those lower skilled youth. Even if you look at these COVID stats that have come out now, you'll see that for those with just a matric or lower than a matric, the COVID hit them hardest. They were most likely to not receive a salary. And for people who work in face-to-face jobs, which are lower skilled people, these were most affected in COVID. The grads could get onto their laptops and start working virtually. But this isn't the reality for many young people who work in lower skilled jobs. So it has to be something that enables young people who've fallen out of the school system, and there are millions of them, to be able to get into these jobs quickly.
I see, as part of the stats that have come out, the vast majority of employment opportunities here in South Africa, Doctor, do require a skill of some kind, which is generally taught through some kind of institution, whether it's a TVET college or one of those trade sort of colleges. And one of the worrying stats that I'm seeing is some 34.1% of this 3.5 million 15 to 24 age group are not employed, educated, or even, and this is the part that worries me, in training. Is this stat speaking to the number of people who are just unemployed, or the number of people who are trying to find jobs but can't get in because they don't have the education to find a job in these sectors?
Absolutely. You're spot on with that. If you look at the demand side of our economy, where the jobs do open up are in urban centers, and these jobs are looking for highly skilled individuals with creative and problem-solving abilities. The space in South Africa we are a consolidated economy. We do have businesses that are sophisticated and globally competitive. So you will actually see that grad unemployment outside of these very unprecedented COVID times. Grad unemployment is actually a low figure. If you get a good education in South Africa, you can find a job. Eventually, you'll be absorbed by the labor market. The bulk of these young people that you're describing, these NEETs, not in employment, education and training, are almost unemployable in our economy, given the structure of our economy. But if we do start pushing vocational tracks through the schooling system, and I know that higher education is implementing a few models where there are better streams from high school, where young people can start getting into vocations. If you look at a country like Switzerland, 70% of the Swiss don't go to university, and this is one of the highest income per capita countries in the world. So if we could start to track people, not to have this aspiration to go to university, but to have an aspiration that there are glamorous jobs outside of that space. But we do see that a marker of success in communities is if someone is a grad at a university. And we can absolutely market other types of jobs as being sexy and glamorous for young people. If you look at what YES is doing in the agricultural space, our hubs are setting up aquaponic tunnels that take high technology into an old sector like farming and completely jazz it up for a young person, where you're taking out risk because it's hydroponics and it's technology driven. You have high yield. It's a much more exciting career path if you apply technology to it. Yeah. We're also working with a lot of large companies on digital programs, but what we're doing, Gareth, is delivering them in community, where young women who don't have to leave their kids and travel far to get to these institutions, because many of these unemployed young women are moms. So you create opportunities, digital learning opportunities, to upskill them closer to where they live.
Yeah, yeah.
You start getting better social outcomes, and you're training people for this 4IR economy, because we are moving that way.
Yeah,
you've got to be able to work digitally.
Doctor, I'm going to say thank you very much indeed this morning for speaking to us. I feel, however, sad that you and I are probably going to speak again towards the end of the next quarter. We're still going to be talking about unemployment, which is increasing, but always a pleasure speaking to you. Youth Employment Services CEO, Dr. Tashmia Ismail-Savill, joining us here on the South African Morning. Now,